I have been dating this guy for a couple of months now and it has been going well, but on our most recent date he did not offer to drive me back because he said he was tired from work, and then left me alone to Uber by myself, and I'm thinking about cutting him off because of this. Posted by u/zealous_ideal_use 2453. Throwaway. I'll keep things simple. I, 21F, have been going out with a guy, 23M, for 2 months or so. We've been on maybe 4 or 5 dates. He lives in the town over from me. I live in a college town that relies mostly on bikes and buses for transportation, and most students don't have cars, including me. We made plans on Tuesday to go to this bar with mini golf in his town. He said we could meet at 7, but that he couldn't pick me up as he got off work at 6. His town is about a 30-minute drive from mine, and that was fine. I made arrangements to take the bus. Note that I've never been to this part of his town before. Anyway, I take 2 buses and get there around 7:15, and we have fun. I drink a bit, and he doesn't drink. I feel like this is important to mention since I assumed he wasn't drinking because he would be driving me back home. Around 11 we decide to wrap things up, and he says good night and that we'll plan something later. I, confused, asked if he was driving me home. He said no, that he was too tired after a 6-hour shift. Now I'm panicking a little, since he won't drive me and the buses don't go that late between our towns. I tell him that the buses aren't running anymore, and he sort of just shrugs it off. I asked him why he didn't drink then, and he said he just wasn't feeling it and had work tomorrow. The only option I had left was an Uber, so I tell him I'll take an Uber. The issue with the Uber is that the price was quite high, and I don't have that much money anyway. He says okay and leaves after saying good night, which I felt was another red flag. We were in a public plaza kind of area, and I felt quite unsafe sitting there all alone at close to midnight. I wish he would have stayed until the Uber arrived at least. Luckily, the rest of the night passed without incident, except me being like $50 poorer from the Uber. I've been thinking about it, and I just felt very uncared for. Refusing to drop me off, not really caring about how I got home, and then just letting me wait all alone for the Uber for 10 minutes in what felt like a shady area. So, would I be wrong for not seeing a guy anymore for this reason? Top/relevant comments. Downvoted commenter. Uber exists. Ops response. Yes. That's why I took one. My issues with the Uber part of the night were that, firstly, I wish I had known I'd have to take an Uber. I would have ended the night earlier or spent less on drinks and golf. I don't really have the money to spare for a $50 Uber trip. I'd only budgeted for drinks and mini golf that night. Secondly, I wish he would have stayed at least until the Uber came. Downvoted commenter 2. Well, technically you don't have to date him again if you don't want to. But he's not wrong either. If he didn't want to drive you home, he didn't have to. I'm of the mind that if you couldn't afford the night out, then either make other arrangements, like having him come to you, or just do it another time. I know some people will be like, that's cruel, etc., but you need to be able to look out for yourself first before you pursue someone else. You also need to learn to swallow your pride if you can't afford to do things and either admit it or sit it out. Don't go into situations expecting something that you're honestly not entitled to. Ops response. It's not that I couldn't afford the night. I budgeted for drinks and mini golf. If I had known I'd have to take a $50 Uber back, I would have either spent less on drinks or golf, or left earlier. Commenter 3. Wow. A whole 6-hour shift. Seriously, that's part-time. Commenter 4. He didn't drink. He didn't pay for her drinks or golf. He didn't want to pay for gas to drive her home or help her with an Uber. He's either the biggest cheapskate in the world, or he's poor. He shouldn't be dating. Commenter 5. You know, the op doesn't even say if this was his idea. Maybe he's not that interested. Op's response. This was his idea. He said we should go to this bar and golf, and that he'd pay for everything. He paid for a few drinks, but I insisted on paying for the rest, along with my part of the mini golf. Commenter 6. Do you think maybe he was hoping you'd stay over at his place? Logically, you could expect he would take you back to school, then go to work, or at the least, taking the bus would have been cheaper. I said logically, but the reality is the guy is somewhere over a rainbow. You don't need to go there too. Send him a garbage bag and tell him to jump in. Op's response. I don't think he was hoping for that, or at least I didn't pick up on it. He never mentioned it at all. Besides, he lives with his aunt and uncle, so I feel like that would have been awkward. Op explains the transportation she had on the previous dates. So let me get the full thing written out here. This was our 5th date. The previous 4 times, he came to my town. Date 1, we ended up staying out late, and he drove me home since the buses weren't running. Date 2, he left early, around 6, so I took the bus home. Date 3, I walked home. My town is not super big, and I need the steps anyway. It was a 30-minute walk home. Date 4, I took the bus home since it was, once again, not super late. Update 1 day later. I didn't expect so many comments on my last post, but they were appreciated. Comments from incels were disregarded and laughed at, including some guy who commented probably 15 plus times, but otherwise I got a lot of good advice. To address a few points, I originally thought he would be driving me home since he's done so once before when it was late, but it was in my town. This assumption was reinforced when he only mentioned not being able to pick me up, but nothing about dropping me off. If he had said he couldn't drive me back, I would have just budgeted differently or left earlier to make the bus. Buses around my town run until 12 a.m., but the bus between towns stops running at 10 p.m., which I hadn't known. I did not go in knowing the buses had stopped. If I knew he wasn't planning on driving me back, I would have double-checked the bus schedules and paid more attention. I take the blame for not confirming with him about driving me back. I am not really that upset that he couldn't drive me back, though I was in the moment. I did, however, expect some kind of concern over how I was going to get back and, at the very least, for him to stay until my Uber arrived. Also, for those who blamed me for getting stranded, I wasn't stranded. There was no question about the Uber, but I just would have preferred not to as it put a dent in my finances. On the issue of me being a gold digger or taking advantage of him, I've paid for dates before. If I had a car, I would drive to him. He was the one who suggested the location and time for this date, so I had no problem catching 2 buses over. And in response to a few annoying comments about gender, if the roles were reversed, I would have driven him back. If I was too tired or didn't want to drive at night or something, there is no question that I would have waited for his Uber and paid half of it. In my opinion, that's just basic decency. Not really sure where the comments whining about equality were coming from, as I would have paid half and waited whether I was with a man or a woman. I think I've addressed the main points, so on to the update. So the date happened on Tuesday night. I took an Uber back and got home around midnight. He texted me around 20 minutes after I got home asking if I got home safe. I didn't respond as I was exhausted and honestly just wanted to shower and sleep. Throughout Wednesday, he sent me a few memes in the morning and afternoon, and then stopped texting. Wednesday evening I posted my first post, and after that, later at night, he asked if I was mad at him and said he'd just been tired. I finally responded and told him I wasn't really mad that he didn't drive me home, especially since it's true I didn't confirm, but I was just disappointed since I wished he would have stayed for the Uber to show up at least. Like, did I wish he drove me home? Sure. But not really that big of a deal that he didn't. The part where he left me at midnight in an unfamiliar place was kind of the kicker for me. He's a lot bigger than I am, and I would have just felt a lot safer with him there. Once again, he said he was just tired and wanted to go home and said I ended up okay and that it was fine. Honestly, if he'd done a real apology, I probably would have given him another chance. When I didn't respond to what he said, he kind of moved on and said he already had a place to take me to next time, some restaurant a few miles from his house. He said let's do a reservation at 8 p.m. on Saturday and then go out for drinks and then a movie. I kind of wanted to be petty and ask if I should start saving up for an Uber back already, but eventually I just told him that his actions from Tuesday had made me feel very uncared for, and that I wasn't really interested in going out with him for a 6th date. He immediately started asking if I was serious and said that if he'd known it was such a big deal, he would have stayed for the Uber. This annoyed me since how did he not know it was a big deal? Why did it not occur to him in the first place that leaving me alone at midnight in an unfamiliar public plaza with bars everywhere might be an issue for me? He said he really liked me and didn't want this to ruin things, etc., etc. He even promised to drive me home next time, but I kind of just wanted to wash my hands of this whole thing. I don't want him to feel forced into driving me, and I don't want him doing things only because he thinks he has to. I don't want to be dating someone who doesn't even think twice about leaving me buzzed somewhere unfamiliar at midnight and then only texting me like an hour later. He's still texting me, but I haven't opened those messages yet. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. I would just reply, if you couldn't see that leaving a woman alone, in a strange place, in the middle of the night would make you an undesirable partner, perhaps you shouldn't be dating. And to answer your question, really, I'm no longer interested. Please stop reaching out to me. Commenter 2. You dodged a bullet. If he's this inconsiderate this early on, it's not going to get any better. Cut your losses. Commenter 3. I'm probably being cynical, but my personal theory as to why he tried hard to disincentivize you going home is that he wanted you to conclude you should just go home with him instead. Ops response. I mentioned this in the other post, but I'm not sure if this is true since he never mentioned it at all. Besides, he lives with his aunt and uncle, so I feel that would be awkward.